Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another basic guide video. In this one, we're going to be going over armor basics. A lot of this should be pretty simple, but I think it's important knowledge for players to know and understand, so you can understand why vehicle combat isn't going the way you want it to, why you lost, why you won, etc. So first things first, I'm going to split vehicles into seven different categories. I'm only going to be showing 6 of the categories. I will be explaining the 7th category at the end. So this first category, I am going to call the below 80 damage category. This is going to split into 2 different types. We have the ones where it's like they basically do no anti-tank abilities. So that'd be stuff like your flame tanks, your 251, anything which is like machine guns. But then you have the other category of this, which is flak guns, where the damage they do is very inconsistent and unreliable to predict. And in this basic guide, I'm not going to be going over that, but it's something I thought you should be aware of. So that's stuff like the Crusader AA, your flak half-tracks, etc. The damage they can do varies wildly from vehicle to vehicle. Whereas in these next vehicles I'm going to be going over, you're going to be able to predict if they penetrate, this is how much damage they do. And then from there, you can look at your own vehicles or your tank's health and then be able to know how well the engagement's going. So this first category is your 80 damage. Currently, there's only 3 vehicles in it. You have the Greyhound, the Carrot tank, and the Stuart tank. However, I'm going to also note something about these categories is, for example, with UKF, there is an upgrade you can get in the training center, which is which boosts your veterancy, and that includes damage. So if they have a training center upgrade and veterancy on their Stuart, it will do more than 80 damage. So that is something to keep in mind. It does between 80 and then 80 to 30%. So between 80 and 104 if it's Vet 3, which would put it into this next category. This next category is 100 damage. That would be the Command Panzer IV, the unupgraded Crusader, and the Matilda tank. It is to note that when you upgrade the Crusader 2, it puts it in this next category, which is 120. This is where most of your tanks are going to be. Most of your medium tanks, including the Sherman 76, the EZ8, the Stugs, the Panzer IV. You know, a lot of the vehicles are going to be in this 120 range. The Panzer III is even here. This Italian tank, the Churchill. And to note, this single anti-tank gun does 120 instead of 160. All right, this next category is more like your anti-tank tier for the most part. You have stuff like your Hellcat, the M3 75mm gun motor carriage, your Panther, your Brumbar, both Martyrs, and then most anti-tank guns. I only put the USF one here, but pretty much every standard AT gun is here. That's your 160 damage, the anti-tank tier. Then we have what I would like to call the big scary tier, which is all your super heavy anti-tank guns. So your Flak 88s, your Flak 36s, well, that's the same thing, but you know what I mean, the 17-pounder, your Tiger tanks, and the Black Prince. There will probably be more in this category with new battle groups and stuff, just like the other categories, but this is what we have to work with. Now, I named the 7 different categories, 240, 160, 120, 100, 80, and below 80. But there's an exception to all this, and this is the beautiful Grant. The Grant has 2 separate main guns to consider. It has its turret gun, which is a 37mm, that does 80 damage, much like the Stuart, and then it has its 75mm, which is mounted into the hull, which does 120 damage, like you would expect from a 75mm, because it functions very similar to the Sherman. So that's it. Most of your medium tanks are going to have like 720 health to 600, so they can take quite a bit of hits. 6 hits for your 720, like your Shermans and your Panzer IVs, and 5 hits for your like Crusaders and Panzer IIIs. So that's something to keep in mind. It's a bit different with your tank destroyers, for example. It only takes 4 of them to kill the Crusader, or 5 hits to kill your Shermans and Panzer IVs. Okay, now I'm going to go over a couple of examples of things to note. So I'm going to be demonstrating why flanking is important. So in this example here, you have your Matilda with 300 frontal armor, and you have a Panzer IV at basically max range. You have a Panzer IV up here at max range. This is like the front and rear. So as you close the distance, it will gain in penetration Oh, it's bouncing. But we're going to get a couple of shots off. You can see 120 damage. There's your bounce. We're going to fire a couple more shots. See, we're getting quite a good number of bounces. Getting a good number of penetrations, actually. This is the issue with tank combat. We're getting so many penetrations. But we've had 2 bounces, 3 bounces, 4 bounces, 5 bounces. All right, but if we were to get closer, you can see the Matilda is now penetrating a lot more. Okay, we bounced. But as you can see, with the Panzer IV, I guess it's better to keep it at a distance to deal with this Matilda. Because we were winning that fight up until I drove close. But if we were to take this instance where the Panzer IV is now in the rear, you can estimate that like mediums are going to have like a little over 100 penetration. So it should be penetrating every single shot if it doesn't miss. All right, we're going to leave this. We'll come back to this. Another thing I want to demonstrate is the importance of range. So your anti-tank guns normally have 60 range. So that's these ones, this one. These have 70. Most tanks have 40. The exceptions being the Tigers, Hellcats having 45, and the gun carriage having 45. And then you have your Martyrs, which have 50. So in this demonstration, we're going to see the Martyr is able to shoot at the Churchill, but the Churchill can't shoot back. Oh, well, it doesn't help. Which one is it? Oh, here's another case in point. None of these are shooting, but the AT gun was. Let's get that out of the way. So, see, look, the Panzer IV won relatively decisively. But you can see it took 5 hits, 220 health, so it could take 3 more from the 100 damaged here. Here, you can see 160 coming out. Martyr 3 has a tech for DAC, which can boost its damage. Bam, 160. But that's it for that example. And then there's one last thing I want to note, which is a unique feature of both Martyrs, which is it is the only unit in the game that has a bonus damage multiplier from shooting it in the rear. So this normally does 100 damage. So the Martyr would normally have to take 4 hits from these Matilda to die. But we're going to watch it take only 3. Except it's going to turn. But you can see 120... Yeah, 125 damage from that first hit. Not super useful unless you get like one of your, like a Hellcat flank or something where it gets a hit on the rear somehow. Because that would do a lot and then the second hit would kill it rather than it requiring 3 hits. It doesn't help your medium tanks at all, except if like the DAC has maybe 1 health upgrade and you're able to get more than 1 hit off. I'm not 100% sure why it's in the game, but it is. But yeah, basically what you're going to have to find out on your own, because I'm not going over this video, is like what tanks have what penetrations, so you know what is the optimal position for your tank. Like I pushed in with this Panzer IV up against the Matilda, and because I pushed in, I died. You know, and then I got into the rear, and my Panzer IV clowned on the Matilda. It would be also good to get from the sides. You know, if you flank with the Matilda, it's going to destroy a Martyr, but from range, even a Churchill can die to the Martyr, and especially if you let it poke at it. And again, you can back up like the Martyrs with AT guns because they have even more range than the Martyrs. Anyways, that's it for this video, and I will see you all in the next one.